20 years ago. He immigrated to the United States. Really nice guy. His name is Hadir, which means warrior. He had met my grandfather, Willem, him and a bunch of, devils that hung around with him. They'd all survived World War One. You know,
Ooh,
and they
rough,
got they
rough.
got a government check once a month, and that was his money. Didn't belong to the grandma. Doesn't belong to May. It was his money, and they would, when that check came in, they'd go to town and buy themselves a jug of whiskey and some White Owl cigars, and they'd sit on the back porch and finish that bottle of whiskey until my grandmother ran them all off with a broom. Yeah. Get
I've
out of here, you scallywags!
I've seen and heard stories of my grandmother getting off after my grandfather with the broom. As a matter of
I,
fact,
I,
I may have.
I talked him into buying a surplus post office tricycle, Harley Davidson. And he used that. He had a bunch of apartment buildings in Fargo, North Dakota. And he would go around and collect the rent on that motorcycle. Didn't
Oh,
matter what the weather was. It could be a blizzard out. He'd be riding that motorcycle. My grandmother wouldn't even talk to me for almost a year after she found out I was the one that talked him into getting it. Go ahead, Grandpa. You deserve it.
oh my goodness. People are gonna have already asked about would this happen to be the grandfather that passed on the helmet to you that you used in
No,
Vietnam?
that was a family heirloom from an uncle.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Because people were gonna beat me over the head if I didn't dare ask
My
about the
mother
helmet.
sent it over to Vietnam for me
Oh,
as a care package. Showed up at Recon Company. I got this big care package. Of course, the yards know about your care packages when they hit Saigon. They know you got goodies that have arrived from home. And she sent me my Luger, my German helmet, and two big boxes of Cheerios and some pound cake. Nobody eats cake. Even the Montagnards would need pound cake. And you come back with it, whoosh, number 10, number 10,000. Yeah. Yeah. So I took the whole package. I went over to the mess hall with breakfast, and I ceremoniously pulled out that huge box of Cheerios because we used to get the dry cereal in the little one bowl packets, and they always had shit like grape nuts and crap. None of the good stuff in that though. And I had her send me. Oh, there was a box of cornflakes too. And I was pouring out the Cheerios, and the barrel of the Luger fell out of the box into my bowl just as Manus walked up to the table. Let me tell you something, my man. There's something illegal going on here. Really? Shit.
thank goodness he didn't want that thing for himself and was a good guy because I can see somebody else snatching that thing up from you.
No, I ended up. The MPs tried to. They were going to confiscate it, going out of country and that. And I knew that the guys had gone down through there and they were just taking anybody you had a Tokarev pistol. The little prick MPs down at the repo depot would confiscate it and tell you, well, you could file paperwork to get it back when you get to the state. Bullshit, you know. So I ended up giving the Luger to I think to Bach or Loy, one of the two. It might have been Bong.
I think it was Bong.
Bong, yeah. He loved that gun because he'd been in Force 36 with the Legionnaires when he was a 15-year-old striker back in the 50s. When Dien Bien Phu. So he loved that gun. I gave him the Luger and I gave my Tomahawk to Sampat.
I think I'm trying to. I wish I had some photos of all of the. I do actually. I'm trying to bring up. How old was Kuman or Bong the oldest Montagnard that y'all had that was on the team?
Bong.
Bong. Okay.
Bong was in his late 40s, early 50s, and he could walk the legs off of a goat. He was one tough son of a bitch. Bong was.
Holy health! That's the oldest I think I've ever heard from talking to anybody about them having, but hell, if he was fighting with the French Foreign Legion, then yeah,
He
Jesus,
was
wow.
he was 15 in 1954. So this is 70. So 54 to 70 is 16, 15 and 16. So he was about 40 years old, or maybe 30, late 30s. You can't tell with Orientals. They all look like they're, I mean, look at Carl Franklin. You'd swear up and down he's in his early 30s and that. And he was 2 days older than Rock.
I love that. Speaking of Mr. Carl, before we get to some viewer questions, I've been wanting to hear about this man, other than the Cuban. But could you speak about? I've got the photo of Mr. Al Jerpo. I can't pronounce his last name. Andre Smith, Melvin Hill, and Joe Walker up on the screen. Could you speak a little bit about Mr. Andre and what he was like?
Andre. Andre had a lot of anger issues. Well, he was a, who was the other guy down in Central? Ranger Melvin, and they were cut from the same cloth. Andre abused his yards. I thought, yeah, I liked Andre, but I didn't like him. How he treated the yards and some of the other stuff he did. We had boxing smokers where we'd box in the sand out there, and Andre always wanted to pit himself up against somebody the size of McLaughlin. And in fact, he went after McLaughlin in the club one night, and McLaughlin took a garbage can and pushed it down over his head and took a mop handle and beat on the outside of it until he started crying on the inside. Now Andre's a good man, good SF guy. Just his temperament was a bit different.